Let's face it, we women are notoriously famous for being emotional, but also for putting relationships first and prioritizing them in our lives. What if I tell you that emotional unavailability is not exclusive to our male gender? And F boys can easily turn into F girls. According to a study, 4 out of 10 women are nowadays having a hard time in creating a healthy and committed partnership because they are fearing true and deep intimacy. Let's cut a bit through the BS, ladies, shall we? What has happened that women have turned their innate and primordial nature of bonding intimately with someone and nurturing into some sort of a threat that they are running away from and fearing as if it's a predator chasing them? Obviously, there is a cocktail of different reasons. Some that are due to childhood traumas, in particular related to the relationship the woman had with her father, but also the relationship she has witnessed between her parents, which affects her view onto men and her bonding abilities later in life, but also if you've had bad experiences in relationships and a series of events with emotionally unavailable men. Emotional unavailability expresses itself in women just as it does in men, and in particular in 2 very specific ways. Way number 1 is she turns into the runaway date, which means she will enjoy the attention of men, the flirting, the barter. She will have pleasure and a good time with them. But the moment the man wants something serious and to get to know her better, it's like the blockages are just building up. She shuts down and runs off. This pattern usually tends to play out in women who have a distorted and difficult relationship with their father. Perhaps he was cold, detached, or just very shallow, judging and putting them down all the time. But also if they had to witness the father being a certain way towards the mother, and they made themselves the promise that they will never ever experience the same. When we are having this pattern of fear to allow a man too close to see us, there is usually always a very deep lack of self-worth and a high level of insecurity within us, that we believe that as long as we keep it shallow with a man, it is fine. But the moment he gets to know us, is he still going to be interested in who we truly are and love us for who we are? A distorted sense of self-worth can also often stem from a father who is overly critical, judgmental, and not really supportive towards your dreams and talents. Now, this can either turn in you really shutting yourself off even more, or the opposite, proving yourself. And I'll give you a little example when I was growing up in my teenager years. Now, I was very rebellious growing up, but also had to deal with a very strict Balkan father. Now, while my dad is a man of a huge heart, he's also highly critical and very results oriented. Dreams? What dreams? If it doesn't bring you money, if there are no results, it's worth nothing. Now, I used to dance professionally, and I would drive for hours in Germany to another audition in a different city. So when he heard me driving 4 hours from Frankfurt to Berlin just to attend a casting for a possible TV show that I get or might not get, he would go ballistic. But the moment he would see me on the screen performing and dancing, he would be so proud and tell everyone in our restaurant, "This is my daughter, she was on TV and I'm so proud of her." Parents usually do the best they can with what they know and what they have and what they have been taught themselves, but they don't realize how much damage it can cause in a child's psyche. And if you belong to the group, then I would really advise you to dig deep into the relationship that you had with your father. What was he teaching you about your value? What was he showing you who you are? And what pattern have you adopted with men? What perception about men that is related to your relationship with him? Shutting yourself off from real intimacy and committed partnerships, if that's what you really desire, often tends to just be a self-protection mechanism that we have started to adopt in order to cope with the pain and the disappointments that we have experienced. So other than just going to the root cause of the problem, which is the relationship with your dad, and identifying the patterns that it has caused and also the wrong identification that you have taken on, is also to look at the belief systems you have created due to that. What is the real belief under your fear of creating real partnerships? And what is this belief actually really protecting you from? Fear is usually part of our survival mechanism, and while back in the days when we were still hunting animals and were hunted by animals was useful to protect us from real predators, nowadays the externalized fear is something that we have started to internalize, which creates much more damage because it puts us in a constant state of survival and protection. But what are we really trying to protect ourselves from? Is it helping us, or isn't it maybe causing more damage? Now, the second way that emotional unavailability can play out in women is exactly the opposite. Women become F-girls, who, just like F-boys, use men for their own pleasure, sexual gratification, lust, money, interest, favors, and so on. Of course, they do not mostly like to see it that way. They either say, what men do, I can do too, or they're overly trying to avoid the fact that they are just doing the same thing. Now, there is a difference between simply enjoying your body with several men and having a hedonistic lifestyle versus playing out your own subconscious pains and toxic patterns in telling yourself that you are doing what you're doing because there are no good men out there and you just haven't found the right one yet for you. This behavior and pattern is usually a trauma response that occurs after really heavy breakups and a series of bad experiences and disappointments in their love life. Now, women can turn that obviously into a power game where they can start to use men to their own benefit as opposed to being hurt by them. But also, paradoxically, they form a suspicion towards good men that treat them well because they're so accustomed to the bad boy type. They know exactly what they get out of them, even if they know it's not good for their health. But they rather go for the devil that they know than perhaps for a good man where they have to allow themselves to be vulnerable again. And this is exactly very often used as an excuse by women and men that there are no more good men or women out there and that they can't find a good man or a good woman. More often than not, it is simply for us a very good reason that we excuse ourselves with and justify our behavior in order to keep doing what we are doing, in order to keep hiding, not change anything, and God forbid to dare to look within and open our hearts to really accept love in our life that is healthy. Reality is, my loves, that if you keep attracting emotionally unavailable partners, or you yourself are shutting yourself off of love whenever it gets closer to it, then there is a big part inside of you that is also emotionally detached, cold, and unavailable. Perhaps just as the father figure you have experienced and your previous love letdowns and disappointments. And the reason why you're playing out those patterns is because you have adopted this self-sabotaging protection mechanism that keeps you away from really feeling the pain. Life is way too short for that. Trying to ignore past hurts and pains and jumping from one extreme of the scale to the other is not going to prevent you from any further disappointments, but it's going to let it run more on autopilot, because whatever you suppress is deeply buried in our subconscious, and from there it controls you. So if you would like to really finally break free from that, I have created special programs that will help you to do exactly that, because they are designed to really dig into the root cause and allow you to transform and create a life, especially a love life that you desire and that you also deserve. It doesn't always have to be difficult and complicated, but the only way is through. So if you need help, please DM me. Until then, I hope that this video was able to shed a little bit of light. Please remember, nobody was ever born emotionally unavailable. It is a pattern that we have adopted and identified ourselves with. Hurt people hurt people. It's time to interrupt and break that vicious cycle. Sending you so much love. Mwah.